Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Rebel News live stream on this, a Friday, May 2nd, 2025. I'm David Menzies and my co-host, well, let me tell you a little bit about my co-host, shall I? Folks, do you know that today is National Space Day? And my co-host, she dreams of the day when she'll become a lady astronaut, like Katy Perry. She dreams of that day when she'll be jetting off to Mars and Mercury, Jupiter and Saturn, but she'll never go to Uranus. She is the she-devil with a sword. She is the Khaleesi of Northern Alberta. She is the sensational Sheila Gunn Reid. How you doing there, Sheila?
David, I knew you'd have something great in store for me today, since I don't normally get to co-host with you. And since you're driving, I knew that it would be something interesting. I didn't think that it would go that way. It's also...
Do you think by that, Sheila, do you mean there might be a member of the team curled up in the fetal position right now? It's a bit of an in-joke there, folks, but anyways.
No, you know what? It could be me, if I weren't live on air. And you had a lot of options to go and to take this in a bad direction, because it's also National No Pants Day today. And it's also National Play Your Ukulele Day, which I don't know if you saw that clip of Liz May and her husband serenading her campaign the other day. But those two were celebrating early. We should tell everybody
what... Sheila, if I can get some clarity, isn't National No Pants Day? Doesn't that happen in June? It's also known as Gay Pride Day. Isn't that when you take off your pants?
Anyways, I don't know. I don't know what's happening under the desk there at Rebel News HQ. Half the time I'm in my pajama pants over here. Anyways, we should tell everybody.
Friendly.
Oh. Okay. I should tell everybody what we're doing here, because we've got some breaking news about a Conservative MP stepping aside, and I know a little bit about that riding because it's sort of kind of the riding next door, depending on if I'm going northeast or southeast. And we'll talk about that. And Alexa was able to get some questions to the Prime Minister on the street today, because even our Quebec journalist is out there trying to get answers for Western Canadians. But we've got some housekeeping stuff to talk about. So if you are watching us on YouTube, thank you so much for tuning in and staying with us, even through the dark times of YouTube's intense censorship, and there's still quite a fair bit of that out there, but we are remonetized over there. So if you want to leave us a super chat, that's your paid chat over there, we would sure appreciate you. And we'll read it on air if it's over the $5 US cutoff. If it's under that, we'll do our very best to get to it. Or you can leave us an after the fact paid comment. It's called a super thanks. And, we'll never take a penny from Justin Trudeau, Mark Carney, to do what's the difference, right? Like, why even retrain my brain? Because it's the same guy calling all the shots. Just, now he's from behind the curtain and out in front. But we'll never take a penny from not just Mark Carney, but any government to do the work that we do, to hold governments to account. If you are watching us on the great free speech platform of Rumble, same rules apply about the $5 US cutoff, but their chats are called Rumble Rants. So this is our way to democratize the show and get support from our viewers. So let me know what you have to say about what we're saying today. David, I think we should talk about this really quick because it just happened.
Okay.
Alberta Conservative MP Damien Kurek, he stepped aside just maybe about a half an hour ago, announced it, that he is stepping aside so that Pierre Poilievre can come home where he belongs, where he's from, to beautiful Alberta. Now, I don't know what that means for Damien Kurek, but boy, the separatists would probably love to have a strong, stable hand guiding their way. I don't know what he feels about those things, but there's an opportunity there. But Battle River Crowfoot is the riding. It has been conservative in all of its iterations. You know how boundaries get redrawn and they encompass other ones. But this is a massive, massive riding. This is a riding that is bigger than many European countries. And it has been conservative in its entire history, all the way back to 1935, except for 2 terms. So this is a deep, deep deep blue conservative riding. And I cannot stress that enough. It's routinely won with over 80% of the votes going to the Conservatives. In fact, in 2019, I think Kurek won with 86%. It was, if not the highest, one of the highest Conservative turnouts in the entire country. He just won it. Just now with 82% of the vote. So the Conservatives are very clearly not taking any chances with Poilievre not taking this seat. And we just heard from the Prime Minister saying there's going to be no hanky-panky. He'll call the by-election as soon as possible. And I think the Conservatives were waiting on that because he could wait for 6 months and the Conservatives wouldn't have a leader in the House, and they'd probably have to rely on Andrew Scheer, who is a much better MP now than he was when he was the leader. I actually really quite enjoy him now. So I would have been fine with that, but it also would not have been fair because you really want to see Poilievre versus Carney in the House of Commons.
And Sheila, because we are like the Major League umpire behind home plate, calling him as we see him, if Mark Carney is being true to his word, we got to give him props. That there will be no nonsense, that it will happen as soon as possible, I think his words were. And that's fantastic because that has not always been the case. Sometimes a sitting government can wait till the very last day and draw it out for months. So I guess 2 questions, Sheila. When we look at the words as soon as possible, what are we talking about here in terms of the number of weeks? And also, this must be very tough for Mr. Kurek. I mean, I've never run for political office. I don't think you have either. But I imagine even in a safe riding, you're a lot of, shoe leather being worn out, going door to door to door. Obviously, you believe in the party, believe in its policies. You want to be the sitting member of Parliament. To give up your seat, to take one for the team, I think that's just an incredible thing that this person has done. Maybe he realizes that it is indeed for the greater good. We haven't been on since the election, Sheila, you and I, but I think it would be an enormous mistake to have anyone else lead this party other than Pierre Poilievre. And
I completely agree. He's really engaged the young people and built this broad coalition of new Canadians. Like if you look at the heavily immigrant communities in Toronto, they staved off a Carney majority. They really did. And I think that falls down to conservative social values. And, we have this coalition of Indigenous chiefs now. 2 of them are elected for the Conservatives, one in Edmonton and one in BC. And then just young people, business people, young working class families, unionized, private sector union tradespeople. It's an incredibly lasting, broad coalition that Poilievre has built, and he was the guy who did it. I think it would be a huge mistake. And I think he'll be welcomed back to Alberta with open arms. And I got to say, what an honorable thing that Damien Kurek is doing. He could have been the MP forever there. Forever. Yeah. I think basically Kevin Sorensen, who was there before, just sort of got tired of being an MP, but he could have died in office. And same thing in this riding. And I think this encompasses CFB Wainwright. So there's a military base there. Like this is farmers. This is coal country. The military could not be like the numbers play out. Couldn't be more conservative. Kurek could have been the MP there from beyond the grave. Like they would have just kept voting conservative there. And so this is an honorable thing that he has done. And we should, as Canadians who oppose Mark Carney as the Prime Minister, should all be grateful. I think we all owe him some serious thanks.
And Sheila, maybe this is too inside baseball, but in terms of the quid pro quo for Mr. Kurek, is he given anything in return for this?
I doubt it. I mean, I think he could probably do anything he wanted at this point in the conservative movement. Okay. But I mean, he's got his pension, and I think he'll be just fine.
Well, hats off to him then. That's a very good thing he's done. And,
noble.
Yep. And I imagine it is true that after a defeat, like the Conservative charters, they have to have a leadership review, and I don't see any appetite there, Sheila, for the knives coming out. I mean, certainly after Aaron O'Toole lost, you could hear. It was like being at the pro shop at the hockey rink, the skate blades being grinded, except they were knives, right?
I don't
you
think
really
there's any
got
of that
vibe, right? But not now.
Yeah, but no, I mean, if you do see it, it's people like Bob Fife, the congenital liar, saying he's hearing from conservative insiders. Which one, Corey?
Yeah,
Doug Ford's people. You hearing from them? Like I used to respect Bob Fife even when he was wrong, or like even if I disagreed with his takes. For example, he's the guy who snapped that picture of Hamish Marshall and me at the 2018 Conservative AGM in Halifax, and went around the world like, oh, he is with the bigoted Rebel News, and it was just like a friendly hello as he walked past. I guess I should have thrown a drink at him. Maybe that would have been better for Bob Fife. But even if, I don't care if these people like me or whatever, or they don't know me, so it's okay for them to be wrong about the kind of person that I am or my relationships with people inside conservative circles. But when he flat out effing lied about what happened and what went down at the debates, I just making things up at a whole cloth. I don't trust a single word that he says. So given what I know now about Bob Fife, are there even conservative insiders telling him this? Like, at first I would think, okay, these are Doug Ford conservative insiders sowing the seeds of discontent to the mainstream media. But now I think he could be just completely making it up because the man is a liar.
100%. And Sheila, I mean, I can't help think back a couple of weeks ago to the debates. It was talk about breaking the fourth wall. Talk about seeing, it was just, I mean, I had a ringside seat. I saw everything, all the shenanigans going down. You almost have to wonder if it was rigged, if this wasn't just that Hill Times reporter losing his marbles on the spur of the moment, but that this was kind of a planned coup by the mainstream media. I wouldn't put it past them, but that was a disgraceful day, and it had nothing to do with us and the other independent journalists there. It had everything to do with the mainstream taxpayer-funded journalists. But you know what? They got the reward. Isn't Carney going to top up the CBC by 150 million? Yeah. and it wasn't there talk about some legislation being drafted so that the CBC could never be demonetized by the government? Could never be canceled. So keep your eye on that too. So
and the online harms bill is coming back. They're talking about it today.
Yep.
So I saw Stephen Gilboa. I responded to a tweet from him, or an X post. I don't want to call it tweets because that was when it was a time of censorship. These are X posts, and Stephen Gilboa was on there promising to bring back the Online Harms Act, talking about the Online News Act and how it protects journalism, except now people can't consume journalism the way they want to consume it because Meta didn't pay the shakedown. So it's dark times ahead for independent journalism, for sure.
Yeah, we sure get protected, including police protection, except that when we're in the cruiser, we've got our hands handcuffed behind our back.
You speak for yourself, David Menzies. Speaking of, let's get moving on the show because I can't work late today.
Banker's hours, eh?
I start at like 6 a.m. because they start on Toronto time. Okay, we've got speaking of independent journalists, we've got Alexa Lavoie out there ripping it up on the streets of Ottawa. She got Mark Carney today. And as I alluded to, our Quebec-based journalist here at Rebel News is going to ask questions on behalf of Western Canadians that the mainstream media just won't. She asked Carney about his silence on the 100% canola tariffs as we're in the middle of seeding right now, and Premier Smith's warning of a national unity crisis, and his use of tax havens. She was just like firing on all cylinders, and that's tough because it's your eyes see Mark Carney, and then you have to get your brain in gear. and then you have to put whatever's happening in your brain out your mouth in an articulate way. And so Alexa, like a well-oiled machine, got it all out. So let's watch this.
Mr. Carney, why have you not spoken about the 100% tariff from China on canola? Why have you not spoken about that yet? Premier David Smith warned of a national united crisis if Alberta concerns are not being addressed. Are you going to take our demand seriously, Mr. Carney? Mr. Carney, do you believe that using tax haven is ethical, Mr. Carney?
Go back on that.
No, I have the right to be here. I'm sorry, but why are you calling police on independent journalists, Mr. Carney? Do you believe on freedom of the press? You remember in Davos, you condemned the arrest of my colleague David Menzies by your colleague Chrystia Freeland, and now you're calling the police to block us access, Mr. Carney.
You're
Can
too
you
close
stop?
now. You're too close now. You need to go that way.
Mr. Carney, are you going to release the 11 parliamentarian names involved in foreign interference, Mr. Carney?
You know, Sheila, let me rant here because my blood is boiling. Those were excellent questions by Alexa. And it's really funny, isn't it, how Mr. Carney 16 months ago in Davos at the World Economic Forum, no less, told Ezra and Avi Yamini that what happened to me with the Fraulein Freeland incident was bad, that he supported freedom of the press. Gee, what happened in 16 months? But what is this nonsense of these RCMP goons getting handsy with Alexa? Why did he say, you're too close here, you must go away? They know who we are. They know we are not a threat. This nonsense is happening not very far away from when Alexa got shot by a cylinder during the Freedom Convoy slam down. So, it's staggering to me how he said one thing with conviction 16 months ago, but here we are, same old, same old.
Yeah, I mean, and meet the new boss, same as the old boss. None of this is different. Actually, I will say it is a little bit different because it was almost impossible to catch Trudeau out and about on the streets of Ottawa. Carney will learn very quick that if he is out and about on the streets of Ottawa, independent journalists will catch up with him. And so you're going to see that these encounters are not going to happen as frequently going forward because it was Chris Dacey back to back on this stuff. Now Alexa, I don't think we'll make it to 5 interactions before Mark Carney is leaving from a parking garage in an SUV with blacked out windows.
No, 100%. And I just go back to my point. Look, I understand that the personal protection unit of the RCMP, they do have a role to play. They have to provide security. Now, if there was somebody, let's just say, dressed head to toe in camo, was wearing a mask, had an object that might resemble a gun, then I can see some hypersensitivity. But again, Sheila, they know who Alexa is. They see the Rebel News mic flash. So to treat her as a potential threat is just egregious and outrageous.
Yes. Let's move ahead. We've got Mark Carney in his first press conference as Prime Minister. He speaks on Uniting Canada, and then he talks about hockey because this is the only Canadianism that he knows. Is hockey. This is like somebody who has been outside of the country for many, many years. What is Canadian? Ha, ha, ha. Hockey, dog sleds, Tim Hortons. Like, your Mounties, yeah. This is all he knows about us. This is what he thinks the Canadian identity is. And I'm bored of it already.
Canadians in the NHL play for a variety of teams passionately against each other. But when they're in a once-in-a-lifetime series such as the Four Nations or the Olympics, those same Canadians come together to win it all. During elections, Canadians play and cheer for different teams. Now that election is over, and we are in a once-in-a-lifetime crisis. It's time together, it's time to come together, to put on our Team Canada sweaters and win big. Now is the time for ambition, to be bold, to meet this crisis with an overwhelming positive force that is a united Canada. It's time to build, and my government is getting to work to build. Build big, bold, and build now.
You know, Sheila, it makes my skin crawl when I hear politicians use the term Team Canada. To me and to others of my generation, there was only one Team Canada. It was the 72 Team Canada, the Summit Series against the Soviet Union. And that was an epic, one-of-a-kind, incredible hockey drama. But when I see politicians, these connivers, say, oh, we're Team Canada. And another thing about the so-called hockey expert, I know Mark Carney did play goal at a high level, but this business of elbows up, I don't know if we've ever discussed this. What a stupid thing to say, elbows up. That means you're going into the boards with your elbow. You're going to take a penalty. You're out there to do something illegal. I know.
That's unsportsmanlike.
And it goes from unsportsmanlike to what, a dance rivaling the Macarena now with certain liberals.
I described it as somebody spilling a drink on a Roomba robot, like those vacuum robots. The way it was sort of, it looked like he was malfunctioning. Yeah, this is the only analogy that Mark Carney knows. It's the only Canadianism that he knows. This is his deep understanding of Canadian culture, is hockey. And there's so much more to who and what we are than that. But this is the best that he can do. This is somebody who's been out of the country for the majority of his career. Anyway, that's about enough for him. But there's more. He's so boring. I just can't do 4 years of it. Elise Trudeau was interesting to look at sometimes with his stupidity, but this is just soul-suckingly boring.
I think you answered my question, Sheila. Mark Carney comes across like the proverbial banker because that's what he is. So given the choice between Carney being so buckled down and staid and boring, and that is the correct descriptor, versus the cringe theatrics via blackface, what would you rather see?
My problem with Carney is that his Canadianisms are so insincere, right? Like, just if you are a boring banker, be a boring banker. You know who was a boring banker? Stephen Harper. He was great. He was a boring accountant. And he was completely sincere in it. There's just something so insincere and unlikable about Mark Carney unless you have osteoporosis. Like, I just don't know what it is. We've got more from Mark Carney. He's asked if President Trump continues to talk about us being the 51st state and if the American leader respects our sovereignty. I do kind of like how all the boomers were duped into thinking that he was the guy to fight Trump. And he, I think, is just going to lay down and sleep at the feet of Donald Trump.
Not this boomer.
I know. If you didn't vote for him, I'm not talking about you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
With the president, did Mr. Trump outright say or insinuate at any point that Canada should become the 51st state?
He did not.
All right. We've heard Mr. Trump on April 23rd and his surrogates throughout the final days of the campaign reiterate the idea that they believe Canada should become the 51st state. On the campaign trail, you said on multiple occasions that respect for Canada would be one of the key things in terms of having a meeting with him. Do you think over the past few days we have seen respect for Canada from the Trump administration?
Look, it's always important to distinguish want from reality. La volonté et la réalité, right? What someone wants and what is reality, and what the Canadian people clearly have stated, virtually without exception, is this will never, ever happen. And if any of the leaders of the party and their representatives would attest to that, I think the votes attest to it. I think the public dialogue attests to it as well. We are, we're meeting as heads of our government to discuss that partnership. Now, I'm not pretending those discussions will be easy or they won't proceed in a straight line. There'll be zigs and zags, ups and downs. But as I said in my remarks, I will fight for the best deal for Canada and only accept the best deal for Canada and take as much time that's necessary.
Sheila, I wonder what the over-under number is when Carney cracks and gets really mad either in the House of Commons during question period or during a media scrum. Remember, he's not used.
Look inside yourself, David.
Yeah, exactly.
Look inside yourself.
Which is a Hannibal Lecter quote, by the way, folks.
Yeah.
Look it up.
No surprise.
When he's talking to Agent Starling. But what I'm saying is that he's not used to being questioned. He's used to being giving orders and having lackeys and minions carry it out. I just wonder if he's going to adapt, if he's going to course correct, or there's going to be a couple of times where he just snaps, kind of like, do you know who you're talking to, kind of thing, right?
Yeah, it's going to be soon. You can see that he's losing patience with everybody. He's just sort of annoyed that anybody dare ask him a question, and it started long ago, like in the middle of the campaign, and it's not ending.
Yeah.
Okay, is my image frozen? Of course it is. Let's move ahead. I am frozen.
You are frozen.
I don't know. Am I back now? Oh,
kind of like that scene in Kiss the Girls and Make Them Die, where a guy kind of like Mark Carney is going to freeze all the women in the world, and he'll be the only one to populate the world because he's made all the men infertile. I think it's from 1966.
How is he going to freeze the women? By boring them to death, putting them to sleep forever?
No, there's a cryogenic process.
Okay, because he can just do it by talking. I have a tough time paying attention to him. I really do. All right, CBC Watcher. This is, if you're not following CBC Watcher on X, he's a Sheila Gunn Reid recommended follow.
Oh.
Carney and Trump. It's a comic, like a cartoon, political cartoon from Phil Hands, Wisconsin State Journal. I thought this was probably apt. It says it's a gift basket from Mark Carney.
Wow.
And this is the card. Our Mounties are red. Our Labatt beer is blue. I wouldn't be prime minister if it wasn't for you.
Sheila, do we laugh or cry?
It's accurate. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like, what is that saying? It was a Russian, I think it's a Russian saying that, like, in every joke a comedian tells, there's a little bit of humor, in meaning that, like, it's all truth and there's just a little bit of a joke, and that's what this is.
That's a great caricature of Trump, though, I got to tell you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's vicious and savage, but that's what a good political caricature is supposed to be about, right?
Exactly. Let's read a couple of chats. We'll hit an ad break and we'll come back into, not a couple of chats. We've got a few chats. Thank you, everybody. Let's read these. We'll hit an ad break and then we'll come back into the other news. Aaron Burton 32 gives us $5 on my monologue, as I filled in for Ezra last night. To your monologue on Ezra's show last night, and it was just me, honestly, it was just me complaining about CBC for about 50 minutes straight and how they're going to get worse. They're lying, and Carney's rewarding them even more. To your monologue on Ezra's show last night, Murdoch Mysteries has been getting worse over the years. It got renewed yesterday. Do you know, that's the only, I put CBC Gem on my mother-in-law's TV because she loves Murdoch Mysteries. But even she, I don't think, enjoys it anymore. It got renewed yesterday, 2 days after the election, and securing the Liberals' funding. Coincidence? Here's a little history of Murdoch Mysteries. Murdoch Mysteries didn't used to be a CBC show. I think it was made by CT or City TV. And then CBC came and scooped it up and made it part of the Mother Core. So it was doing fine on its own out there in the private sector, if you can call Canada's media landscape the private sector anymore. But it was out there, not under CBC. And then CBC was like, we'll take that. Thank you.
Can I add a little politicized COVID-19 story?
I remember. Yeah.
Yes. Peterborough is where Murdoch Mysteries was filmed. Maybe it's still being filmed there. And the year there was that big rally in Peterborough, and the police went out and they gave selective tickets to selective people. Myself, Maxime Bernier, Randy Hillier, even though there was 5,000 there, allegedly breaking protocols of COVID-19. And we went back several months later to witness Murdoch Mysteries being filmed, and the protocols were being broken. Nothing to see here, folks. Move along, even though the police station was maybe 300 meters away from the outdoor set that they were filming. So once again, one rule for thee, one rule for me. Hey, Sheila?
Yes. Now, our next chat is from Spam Bot Fodder. It gives us $5. I might need some help from the producers to bring up the electoral region of Alberta and Saskatchewan, so I can show you why you do not have to worry about what is mentioned in this chat. Poilievre's riding was gerrymandered. In 2024 elections, Canada merged the staunch Liberal Zone 88 with double the population of Poilievre's Zone 41. Will Crowfoot also get gerrymandered? It cannot be gerrymandered. This is one of the deepest blue of all the regions of the entire country, surrounded by equally deep blue regions. So they can play with the borders all they want, but if you look at where Battle River Crowfoot is, and I think it runs up right to the border of Saskatchewan. So Battle River Crowfoot, do you see where that is? Okay. Wow. So Battle River Crowfoot is in the middle of an ocean of equally dark blue ridings. So, to the north, I think it's Lakeland, that's Shannon Stubbs, 80%-ish of the vote. To the south, I think is Kean Bexley's dad's riding of Bow River. Then once you go into Saskatchewan, I forget what those two are, but these could not be deeper blue. This is the safest riding in the country. They can play with the borders all they want, but it's not going to change. If they played with the borders, it might actually even get more conservative. So completely safe. And there's a reason they chose it. And Damien Kurek has done a noble thing.
100%.
Sevenfold 777 gives us $5. Uncle Fester is still employed as a public servant for the RCMP. Yes, we do know that. We see him out and about all the time.
Yeah, and he did another BS attempted false arrest when Lincoln Jay and I in January followed him. He was crisscrossing the 407, which is kind of a thing for me, folks, because that's a toll highway, and Fester ain't paying that toll. And his final destination was an OPP detachment to falsely accuse us of blowing through a red light. And the whole idea was just to be detained while he could bugger off somewhere else. So it's the same old when it comes to Uncle Fester of the Mounties, too. Greg Dumish.
Yep. Deborah Sepp gives us $6.99, and I don't see a chat, but we appreciate you.
Thank you.
We've got another one. Bonnie D, $13.99. Thank you. Very proud of Damien Kurek for stepping aside for Poilievre. As a constituent in Battle River Crowfoot, I am looking forward to the by-election. Also looking forward to what the future holds for Damien. Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Think
you get Poilievre as your MP, and hopefully Poilievre as your PM.
Yeah. He could be the mayor of Wainwright, Damien Kurek. Municipal politics.
Does he want to be?
I don't know. You know what? Let the man take a victory lap as the hero of conservatives for a couple of days. I think the people. Go ahead.
Oh, if Patrick Brown can become the mayor of Brampton, I mean, how sad to go from premier to potentially prime minister, or at least the leader of the Conservative Party, to the mayor of Brampton. It's kind of like that line from Glengarry Glen Ross, the sales contest. First prize, Cadillac Eldorado. Second prize, a set of steak knives. How are those steak knives working out for you, sneaky Patrick Brown?
Yeah, I think Damien Kurek at this point in Alberta and or Saskatchewan could do whatever the heck he pleases. is. The world is his oyster right now. And how exciting for the people of Battle River Crowfoot to have Poilievre as their MP. Like, so exciting. Congratulations, you guys. I'm excited that Poilievre has come home where he belongs. Alex Greer gives us $5.49. Don't see a chat. Jacinta, $27.99. Thank you so much. Do you think some NDP will cross the floor to the Liberals to get Carney a majority? I'm surprised that they haven't already. And because a lot of them were just cutting out the middleman and running for the Carney Liberals. Rod Loyola in Alberta, and then in BC, a former NDP MLA, Stephanie McLean, who never showed up for work and took $60,000 worth of salary while not working. She ran and got elected for the Liberals. So Rod Loyola didn't. He got kicked out of the Liberals and then ran as an independent and lost like with fewer than 1,000 votes. So yeah, I'm actually surprised that some haven't already, because like, what's the difference? Why?
Sheila, I could see that easily happening, but then again, I can see it not happening for one simple reason. And by the way, Carney did say today there will not be a supply agreement with the NDP like Trudeau struck with Jagmeet Singh. He ruled that out. So again, I'm just taking him at his word. But those 7 remaining NDP MPs, they don't have official party status. The party is broke. They don't want an election anytime soon. They got to have a leadership convention. They got to start fundraising. I can see, even without any kind of agreement or any NDP crossing the floor.
They don't need an agreement.
Yeah, they'll just vote with the Carney Liberals anyways.
Right.
They're in no rush to get to the polls anytime soon.
They don't need. That's the thing. Carney doesn't need to strike an agreement with them to hold on to power. They will just go along. Because they can't run an election. They've got no money, no leader, no hope. Nate Simons gives us $5. Will Alberta and Saskatchewan go independent or consider joining the Union of the States down south? I suppose it's up to the people of Alberta and Saskatchewan, and we're definitely not there yet. They haven't even started the process of collecting the appropriate amount of signatures within 120 days to start the process of a referendum question. And I know that Saskatchewan has a citizen-led initiative. Their bar is much higher. And I'm wondering if Premier Scott Moe, who said he is a federalist, but he's not going to stand in the way of people determining their own future, I wonder if they will change their question or change their stipulations to align with that of Alberta, because right now it's a little bit higher, and Saskatchewan's pretty sparsely populated. So you'd really have to book it around the province to round up the appropriate amount of signatures.
Sheila, if I can ask you a hypothetical question, because you are an Albertan. If Alberta and Saskatchewan were to leave Confederation, what would be your preference, independent states or the 51st and 52nd states of the United States of America, which for Donald Trump would be win-win, because those in the Republic, that would be electoral college seats, that would be safe Republican seats. That's the thing with Donald Trump. Be careful what you wish for when you want all of Canada.
Yeah, you don't want the rest of them.
Pardon me?
Yeah, you don't want
That's right.
want to bring in your own Los Angeles. Which is
exactly
like the rest of the country.
100%. So if it's a smart play, would be pick and choose resource-rich provinces that are going to be Republican in the Electoral College, no matter what. So just leave the rest of Canada alone. But again, going back to my premise, completely independent or part of the U.S.
I don't know. I've never even dared to dream that far. I mean, I would love a First Amendment. I would love a Second Amendment, but also those are things that we could decide for ourselves. And I actually don't believe that Alberta and Saskatchewan should have been separated. We are fraternal twins that were separated at birth. And initially we were supposed to be the province of Buffalo.
That's right. Yeah.
In 1905. And some, I guess, to their credit, evil but wise Eastern liberals said, hang on, that's a lot of land mass. And one day they could be powerful together. And so let's split them up. And they were probably right to do that, because if you are like an Eastern liberal looking at that, they have all the food, they have all the energy, they have all the land, they have all the tradespeople, they have all the hard workers, and this sense of independence. And so they were probably right for their own ends to keep these people who tamed this hard land apart. Artificially. So I actually don't think that we should be apart, and whatever Alberta decides to do, our fraternal twin should come along with us.
And I would add, it's a better deal than the raw deal you're getting in Confederation right now, and 'twas ever thus, really.
You know, there are a lot of people who are reluctant separatists who are like, no one can give us a reason to stay. We want to stay. we want to be part of the party, but can you give us a reason to? Anyway, anyone feel that Carney is Emperor Palpatine just before he puts on the hooded cape? Yeah, there's some of that. Good to see Peter Yuen gone and Majid Johari. Yeah, hats off. That's Coconut Lock, $13.99. Well, thank you for that. Shorts Gone Wild, $5. Love everyone at Rebel. I made a funny short about David today.
Oh.
Maybe you could leave that in the chat. I think I would like to see that.
Do we have that to roll, or is that
I don't know.
Beyond our means? A funny short about me.
I almost dread asking to see it. Wayne Casby gives us $100. Wayne Casby gives us $100.
Wow!
Hey, you fabulous Wayne. Rebel rousers! LOL. Great work, great coverage. Maybe time for some interviews with Albertans on seeking signatures on a referendum. Wayne, go to our YouTube. Our friend Sid Fizzard, who is a transplanted Ontarian, actually, has been out there talking to the separatists. Now, I don't think we're going to take an editorial position on separatism the way that our friends at the Western Standard have. But you do know that I think that we're getting a raw deal. And you do know that I think that we are culturally incompatible with the rest of this country. And we are treated unfairly. But here's what I can tell you. We will be a place where you will be able to hear from the people having the conversations. We'll even be a place that will host the conversations. Because the time of shut-uppery is over. If Quebec can have these conversations, so can we. And so we're gonna. And that's
shut-uppery. Oh,
that's true. Have you been on the internet these days?
Because Lady Menzoid uses another word that ends in uppery, but I can't say the preceding syllable because we try to keep this broadcast family friendly.
Did you know if you choose the MAID program and have all your paperwork done and filled out, they may not take your life insurance? I don't know that, but it doesn't surprise me. Living my best life, $10. New T-shirt saying it's time to pull the goalie.
Oh,
jeez.
Beautiful.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, let's hit an ad break and then we'll come back into what's left on the show because we're already at 45 minutes in.
What if governments are trying to reinvent the wheel when the greatest teacher of all times has already laid out the perfect blueprint for a constitution for a kingdom of love, faith, and freedom? Introducing the Kingdom of Heaven Freedom Passport. This special edition Freedom Passport captures the foundational truths of love, ethics, and freedom for all. It's a powerful reminder of Jesus' call to love one another and to be part of something bigger that you can carry with you every day. Join the movement, share the truth, and spread the love with your family and friends. Get your Kingdom of Heaven Freedom Passport at freedompassport.ca. And right now, all orders in North America come with free shipping and a free downloadable song with every purchase.
Do you agree with me? It is time to make Canada great again. And that is why we at Rebel News have teamed up with MCGA Hats to introduce, the fashion sensation of 2025. Oh, and by the way, these beautiful hats, they are made in Canada. We don't rely on cheap imports coming over from China. So what are you waiting for, folks? Show your pride. This is the perfect thing for a patriot to wear, or maybe there's a patriot in your life that you would like to gift such a hat. Please go to mcgahats.ca. That's mcgahats.ca. Don't be shy about it. Wear this cap. Let everybody know you want to make Canada great again. Gee, Sheila, I wonder if you can get into a Blue Jays game wearing one of those hats.
Definitely no. Actually, by the way, David, I sent you an email that you should take a look at. Reminds me after about a similar issue.
Oh, okay.
Regarding an Israeli flag.
Yes, that gentleman has reached out to me.
Okay, good.
It's the Promenade Mall, correct?
Yes. We won't give too much of it away. Yeah. On the issue of Western separation, which is really just consuming all the political bandwidth these days, Premier Smith, she was asked about this in a press conference yesterday, wherein she announced that she is taking the federal government's clean energy regulations, or the clean electricity regulations, to the Court of Appeal. And she'll win. But the journalists in the room, all they could talk about was her lowering the standard for citizen-led initiatives to something actually achievable instead of the rig system that Jason Kenney brought in. Why? Because people would have recalled him if they could, right? Like, there's a reason it was that high, and it was because people wanted to recall him. So Premier Smith, she's repeatedly asked about her personal position on separation, and she keeps saying it's not up to me, it's to the people, which is exactly what you're supposed to answer. But the journalists couldn't get it through their thick skulls. They wasted a half an hour on this question.
Do you support the efforts to hold a referendum on Alberta separating from Canada?
I support the process of citizens being able to choose an issue that they care about, and then being able to get enough signatures to put it to the people. And I guess we'll have to wait and see what comes forward on that.
And what is your personal position on Alberta separating from
My
Canada?
personal position is I believe in Alberta sovereignty within a united Canada.
What does that mean?
It means like what we're doing today. When the federal government violates the Constitution, goes out of their way to interfere with our exclusive jurisdiction, we are going to meet them with every step that we can in order to preserve our ability to manage our own affairs. And in today's announcement, particularly for electricity, we are simply not going to allow the federal government, based on ideology, to violate the Constitution and put our people at risk of being in blackout during the dead of winter or the heat of summer. We're just not going to do it. So these are the kind of things that you can expect to see from our government, and we'll do more of them if we have to.
Well, Sheila, I will say this in defense of the mainstream media with this question. And by the way, it should only be asked once, and once she gives her answer, move on. So if
they
that
kept going.
well, that's wrong. But
we'll get to it.
I'll tell you where I'm coming from. We go back to 1980. René Lévesque, the premier of Quebec, he would say, are you kidding me? Of course, me and my government want separatism. When they had the initial referendum, the second one happened in 1995. I'm pretty sure Mr. Lévesque had passed away by then. So that's sort of a different dynamic, wouldn't you say, between Quebec and Alberta? You had one premier, he's got his evening gown on, he's ready to go to the ball, and Danielle Smith taking another tact.
Well, and that speaks to the problem with all of this, is that you're not even allowed to muse about this as a politician in Alberta when it's part of the culture of Quebec, even though the people are more separatist in the West than currently in Quebec.
Yeah.
But we've never been allowed to have it become part of the open culture of Alberta, like our friends in Quebec, and it just speaks to the double standard. It is one of the reasons why Albertans are like, yeah, enough of this. Something's got to change. Something's got to give. We've got another question from that press conference on electricity. from the media about fanning the flames of Alberta separation.
Kind of feels like you're being disingenuous here. You're not acknowledging what your party president said. You're not acknowledging that there are people gathering outside the legislature today calling for a separation referendum. You're not acknowledging that there are many groups of people in this province who read your proposed legislation as an open door, as an invitation to bring this referendum forward. I mean, do you acknowledge that this has opened the door for them to get it? This is fanning the flames of the fire.
Well,
I acknowledge that.
I can read the media just as you can, and I can read the polls just as you can. And Angus Reid did a poll a couple of weeks ago that said that there was independence support of 25% of Albertans and higher, I think 33% of Saskatchewan residents. That seems to me that the majority of people are not in favor of that. And so I guess we'll see whether or not they're able to put together a petition, gather enough signatures, and put it to the people. I think you're kind of jumping ahead a few steps. We have initiative legislation that has been in the works from my minister since I wrote his mandate letter in 2023, when this was not an active conversation. This legislation came forward now because we have a whole pile of rules that we need to change, because we have to start preparing for a provincial election in 2027. So this is just part of the process. And we had heard from the public on both our recall legislation and our citizen initiative that the bars were set too high, and they wanted us to bring them down so that certain questions could be achieved through a petition campaign at a more reasonable level. We looked around the world. We looked at California, which I think is really the hallmark of this type of legislation, and we brought our amounts down to align with that.
I don't know. I wouldn't look to California for even legislation regulating
I'm
ice
glad
cream
she
trucks.
pointed that. I'm glad she pointed that out, though, to the left-wing journalists.
No,
that
I
this is
understand.
not like a radical conservative idea. And by the way, if you want to organize and declare Alberta some sort of LGBTQ plus AI safe haven, and you want that in our provincial charter, you could start a citizen-led initiative to do that. This is not limited to separation or anything. It's about everything, including recall legislation. So if the left wanted to recall Premier Smith, they could start organizing to do it. So this is not like the fix is in for the separatists. This is for everybody. Yeah. It just requires some work, which I think the other side is not ready to put in.
And Sheila, it is a thing. It is serious. I'm just wondering, again, with you as an Albertan, and you know the pulse of your province, if they were to have a referendum in the months ahead, how does it go?
I think they should not have it too soon. I think there are a lot of people. There are a lot of questions to be figured out, and a lot of this work was already done with the Clarity Act, but that has to be communicated to Albertans so that they can make an informed choice. You know, what happens to the RCMP? What happens to our military bases? What happens to the treaties? If that's a holdup, I would say just we'll honor them. You think the feds are honoring your treaties? Give me a break. We'll honor them. We actually care about First Nations healthcare on reserve. So there are a lot of people who are like, I would support this, but I've got questions about this. I think they need to do a lot of getting the information out there before they even think about holding a referendum that would fail because those questions aren't answered.
You know, and those are important questions, especially the native one, because it came up during the Quebec referendums, right, where the, natives were saying, look, if Quebec succeeds from Canada, we are leaving Quebec because our arrangement, our deal is with the federal government, the Dominion of Canada, not with the new nation of Quebec. So I think these are the questions and the concepts that are going to make for a lawyer's paradise should anything.
Yeah, and, like Alberta is already doing a lot of the work that the feds are supposed to be doing with the First Nations. So Alberta has a Crown corporation that is just there to work on developing natural resources in partnership with Indigenous people. they're building treatment centers on reserve, even though the federal government is responsible for Indigenous healthcare. So there are a lot of places where the federal government has abdicated their responsibilities for Indigenous people in the province. And instead of just saying, well, sorry, take it up with the feds, Alberta has stepped in to do that. So I don't know. For a lot of the separatists that I've been talking to, they're saying, like, if this is a holdup, if the treaties are a holdup, why wouldn't whatever Alberta looks like post-separation, why wouldn't they just honor those treaties? Just say, whatever deal you have with the feds, we got it. It's fine.
Yeah, and if you're a native on a reserve where you still have boil advisories for your drinking water,
yeah,
and it's been like that for decades, yeah, how is that working out for you?
Right. Let's keep going. Jason Kenney has crawled out from under his rock during the election campaign, and instead of receding the way he should have, now he's decided to come out and be Mr. Pro-Federalist. And I've just got one comment on this. Anyways, he says, memo to all the tough-talking Western Alberta separatist keyboard warriors. Okay, these are not keyboard warriors. These are like your people who voted you in the first time, Jason Kenney, and voted for you when you were an MP in Stephen Harper's cabinet. So maybe show a little respect and deference to the problems people are talking about. He says, in 2021, you had a real-life Western separatist party running against Justin Trudeau, and all you could muster was 29 candidates from the absurdly named Maverick, formerly Wexit Party, who collectively won 35,000 votes. And then he laughs about it. As though 2021, the situation in 2021 is somehow the same as it is now. Yeah. And it's not. That's 0.21% of the votes cast. You won fewer votes across the West than a typical MP wins in a single riding. And what happened to your party? You know, this is real rich coming from a guy who was in the Reform Party. And the same things were at the time said about the Reform Party. Like the countless Western separatist parties before, it folded like a cheap suit. With apologies to Monty Python, it's now a dead party. It's no more. It has ceased to be. It's bereft of life. It rests in peace. It's an exit party. Okay, this is the guy who was celebrating Brexit. So he celebrated Brexit, but he would not afford the same for Albertans, the people who kept sending him to a cushy career as a politician.
Well, those are
this guy,
points.
the gall.
Those are brilliant points you make, Sheila. And but what I can't get past in that tweet or X or whatever you want to call it is, when did former politicians, former premiers start using emojis like the smiley face laughing so hard it's crying? I mean, have you ever seen that?
Not only that, Jay Hill, former Harper MP Jay Hill, his colleague in the Alberta caucus of Stephen Harper, was the leader of the Maverick Party. You know? Here's my one comment. Jason Kenney, his fatal flaw was underestimating the anger of Albertans.
Yep.
And he is doing it again.
Yep. What is Jason Kenney's future moving forward, Sheila?
I don't know. Honestly, let's just watch this video from Janice Irwin, because I hope that Jason Kenney and Janice Irwin, she's just a full-body cringe woman. I hope that he joins forces with Janice Irwin as the voices of stay, Alberta, stay, because the West will be out so fast your heads will spin. Look, oh my God.
That's a woman?
David? Yes. Keep your comments to yourself. I'm trying to stay on YouTube. Go ahead.
I'm an Albertan, and I unequivocally reject the idea of separation. Why won't Danielle Smith say the same?
She did.
I'm an Albertan, and I unequivocally reject the idea of separation. Why won't Danielle Smith say the same?
Well, one thing's for sure, she ain't going to get a 2-minute penalty for looking so good.
You know what? You heard it here first from Lyle Lovett. Albertans, you need to stay. Anyway. Let's skip ahead because they're already at the top of the hour, and we have one more thing in the YouTube description. Danielle Smith. I asked a question that I wanted to ask at the debates, but I was unable to because of the nonsense of the CBC, the Debates Commission, and basically the entire mainstream media, save for Joe Warmington.
Yes. Good man. Love Joe.
He's the best. So this was the question that I would have asked the leaders if I had the opportunity, because I'm a Western Canadian. I'm a Western Canadian farmer, and we deserve answers about why the canola tariffs, thanks to the EV protectionism of Trudeau and now Carney, has resulted in 100% canola tariff from China, and nobody seems to care. Nobody's taking it as seriously as the auto sector tariffs, and this is crushing 40,000 Western farms. 40,000, 200,000 jobs. Nobody knows those numbers. I know them off the top of my head because their family's just like mine. So I asked Danielle Smith what she's going to do, since we can't count on anybody else to talk about it, what she's going to do to make sure she's fighting for us. So I asked.
Sheila Gunn-Reid with Rebel News.
Premier, canola is a $44 billion industry. It supports 206,000 jobs, 40,000 Western farmers. Yet Prime Minister Carney, during his campaign and even now, has said nothing about the 100% retaliatory Chinese tariffs on canola, thanks to the Liberals' green protectionist EV policies. So what is your government doing to ensure the canola tariffs are treated with the same urgency by the feds as the auto and steel sector one?
Well, I can tell you that all of the Western premiers who have a large canola industry in their provinces, and that is regardless of political stripe, have raised it directly with the Prime Minister. It seems like it's a bit of a phony war. We've got a 100% tax on EV vehicles from China that no one's buying in order to protect an EV industry in Ontario that doesn't exist. And in return, we are seeing punishment on pork and canola in our Western provinces, which are products people do want. So I think the Chinese have been very targeted and direct in how they're trying to split our country up. And I think we need to revisit that. We obviously are going to have to find new markets for our products, but let's at least engage in proportionate responses rather than having a knee-jerk reaction that is only going to hurt our industries further. And that has been conveyed by myself as well as other premiers directly to the Prime Minister.
The Bloc leader, who will hold some power and influence over Carney's minority cabinet, has just said that there is no future for oil and gas in Quebec or anywhere for that matter. Carney has also said he would allow a Quebec veto over pipelines. So how does Alberta then respond if no pipelines east is the deal that helps Carney keep his government from falling?
Well, I would hope that's not the case. The Canadian people did not vote for fringe voices like the Bloc Québécois or fringe voices like the Green Party or fringe voices like the NDP to control the agenda for the next while here. What Albertans and Canadians voted for was for Canada to become an economic superpower. And that means also an energy superpower. And that is what I would fully expect Mark Carney to do. I hope that he's able to continue forward with an agenda that perhaps even the Conservative opposition would support him in. That's what I think the message of the election is. And I would surely hope that he's not listening to fringe voices from a party that is solely committed to breaking this country up.
You know, what a great answer, first and foremost. And Sheila, secondly, do you think if the canola industry was situated in Ontario or Quebec, then it gets the attention of Ottawa? And my third point is, if Mark Carney was truly sincere about bringing this fractured nation together, it truly is two solitudes of a different type right now, wouldn't the first olive branch be greenlighting a major pipeline out of Alberta, doing the Energy East pipeline from Alberta to New Brunswick? Wouldn't that be a sincere sign that he wants to, mend things? But what are the odds of that happening?
Well, the odds of that happening are pretty poor because you can't get the private sector to invest in a west to east pipeline anymore because of regulatory uncertainty in this country. You could throw all kinds of money at a project, and the regulatory process is so onerous. They subject it to a gender-based analysis plus approval process where you have to ask the sexual minorities in a community how they feel about the pipeline going through there. I mean, it's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. But I mean, just look. That's what happened with Trans Mountain. Trans Mountain was a pipeline that was already going west, or from Alberta west. The new pipeline expansion, they were just twinning it. This is what people don't know. They were twinning it in the existing easement that had already been set aside for a pipeline that had been basically in operation since the Korean War. And there was such opposition from, I think, within the federal government at the time, and the refusal of the federal government to enforce the law that a $5 billion pipeline expansion in the private sector was then absorbed by the government and ballooned 700% and came in overdue. So if you are a pipeline company, let's say you're from Texas and you're like, I could build a pipeline in Iraq where I might have to deal with some warlords, but at least I'll get it built. Or a pipeline in Canada, Iraq it is.
Isn't that amazing? You'd get more of a square deal with a warlord in the Middle East than you would from a prime minister in Ottawa. Unbelievable.
Yeah. And further to your other point about if canola were somewhere else, would it get a fair shake? Just call it the dairy industry.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, then suddenly there's supply management for canola then, right?
Yeah, we don't need that. Well, we don't want that. We just want them to stop doing things that result in retaliatory tariffs on Westerners who didn't want the thing that you're protecting in the first place. Yeah, lastly, this is the last thing in the headline. I guess we've got another Roxham Road just somewhere else.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. Can we bring up the headline here? Yeah. So RCMP identifies new spot in Ontario where unauthorized migrants enter Canada. Now they're staffing it 24/7. Niagara-on-the-Lake. Maybe you should take a little trip, David. Border Integrity Unit arrested several people trying to enter from the U.S. since April 13th. I think they're using the rail bridge there to
Correct.
walk on.
It's the rail bridge, Sheila, and I will go down for you because you are my Khaleesi. And you know what? Why not? Because, full circle here, Sheila. We did that report maybe a year and a half ago where we found out that some prime property hotels in Niagara Falls, even overlooking the falls, they're all refugee properties now. So now I guess some of the people in the honeymoon capital of the world looking over at the falls, maybe they can pick up a pair of binoculars, look at that rail bridge, and see if any family members are on their way in. At least they have a place to stay. You couldn't write this stuff, eh?
Yeah, this is crazy. And this is why Trump was like, you guys have to tighten up your border, because these are like self-deportees. Yep. They're going to come to Canada, and then they're going to go back in. Right. Mm-hmm. And we have become a net exporter of terrorism into upstate New York these days. So I get it. Yeah. I get it. All right. We've got some chats here. We hit everything that we needed to, I think. RC Lamoureux, $5. Are we being set up by Carney and Trump to separate? I mean, if Alberta, I don't know. I mean, if Alberta
it's an interesting
leaves,
question because it would benefit Trump for Alberta to be unburdened.
it would benefit the Liberals too.
Yeah.
It would benefit the Liberals too, because you would then be the Liberal Commonwealth of Canada, because you need the West if you ever want a conservative government to form ever again.
You know what? I think that's the question of the year right now. I think that is a fantastic question. And for both of them, for different reasons, it's win-win, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, the fundraising comes out of the West. The Conservative Brain Trust comes out of the West. We are the blue bloc, the West, the bloc rednequois, as they call us. And so if we disappear, if we just all of a sudden there's scissors and they just cut us out, how then does a conservative government ever come to power in Canada?
100%. And that's where I see the most resistance to separation, Sheila, because Alberta out of the equation, it would be like taking Texas out of the equation in the U.S.
Right.
It might never go Republican again.
Yeah, well, try to convince an Albertan that they owe you the rest of that. Good luck. We don't owe you anything. All right. 2 flips for 5 twists gives us $10. Menzies shout out. I was the biggest Kardashians and Housewives fan, but the only reality show I watch now is the Menzies show. Reality needs to go back to unscripted. You guys only see the half of it.
Well, first of all, if you think those shows aren't scripted, my friend, there is nothing real about so-called reality TV. But thank you very much. I'll whether that's a sincere or backhanded compliment, it's a compliment. I'll take it.
Right. P.S. Schofield 10 gives us $5. You are correct. If their citizens are interested, issue an invite to Alberta and Saskatchewan from the U.S. I'm kind of, I don't know. There haven't been any real overtures beyond like, oh, the 51st state, 51st state, 51st state stuff from Trump. But I would be interested to see what an actual, like you want to go steady note would be like from Trump. Like what about assets, what about, like if you became a territory, like do you want to be like Puerto Rico or do you want to be like Texas? And if they said, actually, if you are an Albertan or a Saskatchewanian, would our dollars be taken 1 for 1? Then all of a sudden you're talking about people being 30% wealthier. And then that can change a lot of hearts and minds, especially being crushed under Canada's inflation.
Well, I'll tell you, Sheila, when it comes to going steady with somebody, it's always very important, the assets. Anyway.
Every time. PJ Menezes, $10. The East and West have always been divided from our flag colors, which are liberal colors, and the maple leaf symbol that is only found out east. Yeah, that's a good point. We don't have maples out here. Time to say sayonara to the east. Like, yeah, we aren't even reflected on the flag at all.
And meanwhile, here in Toronto, our NHL hockey team, its nickname is Vegetation, right? And grammatically incorrect spelling at that.
I was going to say you can't even get the plural, right? Is that it? No, there's more.
Well, don't be sad. Don't sound sad about that. That's fantastic.
No,
Thank you,
more.
everybody.
No, we're not done.
Okay.
Everyone should be contacting and complaining to Elections Canada about how much interference and ballot tampering was happening. Too many cases of it. Maminka gives us $10. Thanks, Sheila, David, and the crew. Unfortunately, most of the chatters here seem to live in some fantasy world, or how to call it. Okay. I think that's it. I think we're all caught up now.
All right, then. Well, thank you so much, Sheila. I know you have a very busy day ahead of you.
I do.
And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. A special thank you to all those people that gave all those chats. That was just fantastic today. Sheila and I will be back here on Monday. Wow, what a week it's been. But, the sun comes up in the morning. We're down now, but we're not out. So hope abounds as always, folks, and we have the fight of our lives ahead of us yet again, and maybe this time we will succeed. So in the meantime, as always, enjoy the weekend and stay safe and stay sane.